You know that moment when your entire world shifts on its axis? When everything you thought was solid ground suddenly turns to quicksand beneath your feet? For me, it happened on a cold Tuesday evening in November, staring at my iPhone screen in our suburban Chicago home, looking at a text message that would unravel 8 years of marriage. 3 simple words: DND tonight, babe, do not disturb. My wife Jessica needed space for an important work presentation. Seemed innocent enough, right? Except I wasn't looking at just her text message. I was looking at the Find My app, watching her AirTag location blinking steadily at the Grandview Plaza Hotel downtown. Room 1214 to be exact. I'm Marcus Henderson, 34 years old, a software engineer who works from home. And this is the story of how one suspicious AirTag, a fake business trip, and my decision to check into room 1213 destroyed everything I knew about my marriage and revealed a truth so twisted, I still wake up at night wondering if it was all real. Let me take you back 6 months before that night. Jessica and I were living what everyone called the dream. We'd met at Northwestern University, fell in love over late-night study sessions and deep dish pizza at Lou Malnati's. She was brilliant, sharp as a whip, with these piercing green eyes that could see right through any BS. I was the quiet tech guy who somehow made her laugh. We got married at a beautiful ceremony in Naperville, bought a 3-bedroom house in Oak Park, adopted a golden retriever named Copper, and settled into comfortable married life. Jessica worked as a marketing executive at Brennan & Associates, a prestigious firm in downtown Chicago. She was ambitious, driven, always chasing the next promotion, the next big client. I admired that about her. She had fire. But somewhere around our 7th anniversary, things started changing. Nothing dramatic at first, just small shifts in the landscape of our relationship. She started working later. More business dinners with clients. More overnight trips to Milwaukee, Indianapolis, and St. Louis for presentations. Her phone, which used to sit casually on the kitchen counter, was now always face down, always within reach, always password protected with a code she'd recently changed. I'm not a naturally suspicious person. I trusted Jessica completely, but there's this thing that happens when someone starts pulling away. You feel it in your gut before your brain catches up. The kisses became pecks. The conversations became logistics. The intimacy became scheduled, then rare, then nearly non-existent. I'm just stressed with work, she'd say, running her fingers through her shoulder-length auburn hair. Once I land the Parkson account, things will calm down. I promise, Marcus, I believed her. God help me. I wanted to believe her. Here's where I need to admit something I'm not proud of. 3 weeks before that fateful Tuesday, I did something that crossed a line. I placed an AirTag in Jessica's work bag. I know. It was an invasion of privacy. It was controlling behavior. It was exactly the kind of thing I'd judge someone else for doing. But hear me out. 2 weeks prior, Jessica had told me she was going to a conference in Detroit. She showed me the itinerary, kissed me goodbye, and drove off in her silver Audi A4 at 6 a.m. on a Friday morning. That same evening, I got a call from her mother, Linda, asking if Jessica wanted to join them for dinner, since she was still in town. My blood ran cold. What do you mean, still in town? I saw her car at that coffee shop on Lake Street this afternoon, Linda said casually. The one near her office. I waved, but she didn't see me. I made an excuse to Linda and hung up. When Jessica called me that night, I could hear what sounded like traffic in the background, not the quiet of a hotel room. She told me about the boring conference panels and the terrible hotel restaurant. I asked which hotel. She hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Barely noticeable, but I caught it. The Westin, she said. I looked it up later. There was no marketing conference at the Westin Detroit that weekend. In fact, there was no marketing conference in Detroit at all. That's when I bought the AirTag. I told myself it was just to ease my paranoia, to prove that I was wrong, that Jessica was exactly where she said she'd be. I slipped it into the small inner pocket of her leather work bag, the one she carried everywhere. I felt sick doing it, my hands actually shaking as I zipped the pocket closed. For 2 weeks, the AirTag confirmed her stories. Office, client meetings, her gym, the grocery store, her parents' house. Normal life. I started feeling guilty, planning to remove it and never mention my moment of weakness. Then came that Tuesday, November 17th. I remember every detail of that day, like it's burned into my retinas. Jessica left for work that morning in a knee-length black dress and heels, more dressed up than usual. She kissed my cheek distractedly, her perfume stronger than normal. Chanel number 5. She only wore that on special occasions. Big day? I asked, sipping my coffee. Huge presentation, she said, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. The Parkson people are finally coming to the office. This could mean a VP position for me, Marcus. I smiled and wished her luck. She seemed nervous, excited. I watched her drive away and went back to my laptop, diving into code reviews and sprint planning. At 3:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. Jessica's text, "Presentation went amazing. Going to celebrate with the team tonight. D&D mode, don't want work interruptions. Love you." My response, "That's great, babe. Celebrate hard. Love you too." Normal, right? Supportive husband, successful wife, celebrating a win. Except at 4:15 p.m., out of habit more than suspicion, I checked the Find My app. Jessica's AirTag was moving through downtown Chicago. I watched the blue dot navigate through the loop, past Millennium Park, and then stop at an address on North Michigan Avenue. I switched to Map View, Grandview Plaza Hotel. My heart started pounding. Okay, I thought, maybe the celebration is at the hotel restaurant. They have that nice rooftop bar, team dinner. Perfectly reasonable. I watched for an hour. The dot didn't move. At 5:43 p.m., I checked again. The precision finding feature on the AirTag showed me something that made my stomach drop. Floor 12. The dot had moved to the 12th floor. I sat there staring at my screen, my mind racing through explanations. Maybe the restaurant has a private dining room on that floor. Maybe they rented a conference room for the celebration. Maybe my phone buzzed. Another text from Jessica. Going to be a late one. Don't wait up. Phone on D&D, see you tomorrow. Tomorrow. She was planning to stay out all night. I zoomed in on the AirTag location as far as the app would allow. The precision was remarkable. It showed me almost the exact position in the building. I cross-referenced with the hotel's website floor plan, which they conveniently displayed for their wedding venue services. Room 12014, or possibly 12013, or 12015, but the dot was blinking. Right in that cluster. Have you ever stood at a crossroads where both paths lead to hell, but you have to choose one anyway? I sat in my home office, Copper's head resting on my foot, staring at that pulsing blue dot, and I had to decide what kind of man I was going to be. Option 1, trust my wife. Believe there was an innocent explanation. Wait for her to come home tomorrow and ask casual questions. Be the understanding, secure husband. Option 2, drive downtown and confront whatever was happening in or around room 1214. For 20 minutes, I argued with myself. The rational part of my brain said option 1 was the mature choice. The part of my brain that had noticed every small change over the past 6 months, every lie about Detroit, every turned away kiss, every "I'm too tired tonight." That part was screaming that I already knew the truth, and I was just afraid to confirm it. I called the Grandview Plaza Hotel. Good evening. Grandview Plaza, this is Madison speaking. How may I help you? The words came out before I could stop them. Hi, yes, I'd like to book a room for tonight. Do you have anything available on the 12th floor? Let me check for you, sir. Keyboard clicking. Yes, we have a king room available, room 1213. Would that work for you? Room 1213, right next door to 1214. Perfect, I said. I'll take it. The drive from Oak Park to downtown Chicago took 35 minutes in rush hour traffic. 35 minutes of my mind spiraling through every possibility, every scenario, every potential outcome. Maybe I'd get there and find Jessica at a work dinner. I'd look like a crazy jealous husband. Our marriage would be damaged by my paranoia. The Grandview Plaza Hotel lobby was exactly the kind of upscale, modern space Jessica loved. All marble floors, contemporary art, dramatic lighting. Well-dressed business people moved through with rolling luggage, heading to conventions and meetings and legitimate hotel stays. And then there was me, with no luggage, wearing jeans and a Northwestern hoodie, probably looking as out of place and suspicious as I felt. The front desk clerk was a young guy, maybe 25, with a practiced smile. Checking in, sir? Yes, reservation for Henderson. Marcus Henderson. He typed efficiently. Ah yes, room 12113, king bed one night. I see you booked just this evening. Any special occasion? I almost laughed at the absurdity. You could say that? Wonderful. I'll just need a credit card and ID. 3 minutes later, I had a key card to room 12113 in my hand. The clerk directed me to the elevators, wished me a pleasant stay, and I was moving through the lobby with my heart hammering against my ribcage. The elevator ride to the 12th floor was the longest of my life. A businesswoman in a pantsuit stood next to me, scrolling through her phone, completely oblivious to the fact that I was potentially about to detonate my entire life. The elevator dinged at each floor. 3, 4, 5, 6. What was I going to do when I got there? Knock on the door of 1214? Wait in my room and listen through the walls? Stake out the hallway? 7, 8, 9. What if she was actually in danger? What if I was misreading this completely and something was wrong? 10, 11. What if I was right? The doors slid open silently onto a carpeted hallway. Soft lighting, quite luxury. The businesswoman turned left. I stood there frozen until the elevator doors started to close. Then I stuck my hand out and stepped into the hallway. Room numbers on the wall, 1200, 1220, with an arrow pointing right. I walked down the hallway slowly, my footsteps completely silent on the thick carpet. I passed 1203, 1205, 1207. The hallway turned slightly. 1209, 1211, and then there it was. Room 1213 on the left, room 1214 on the right. I stood between them, my keycard in my hand, and I listened. Nothing. Complete silence. I checked my phone. 7:02 p.m. The blue dot was right here, right on the other side of that door marked 1214. I could knock. I could call her phone. The sound of laughter came from inside 1214. A woman's laugh. Jessica's laugh. I'd know it anywhere. That genuine, uninhibited sound she made when she found something truly funny. And then a man's voice, too muffled to make out words, but definitely male. Definitely intimate in tone. More laughter from Jessica. My hands were numb as I swiped my keycard and slipped into room 12113. Room 12113 was a standard hotel king room. Nice enough. Comfortable bed, modern furniture, a desk, a bathroom, a window overlooking Michigan Avenue. Under any other circumstances, I might have appreciated it. I sat on the bed in the dark, not turning on any lights. And I listened to the wall I shared with room 1214. Hotels always claim their walls are soundproof. They're lying. If you're quiet enough, if you listen hard enough, you can hear everything. I heard voices, muffled conversations I couldn't make out. I heard laughter. I heard music playing at one point, something jazzy and sophisticated. I heard the sound of the minibar opening. I heard footsteps moving around the room, and I sat there in the dark, my phone in my hand, watching that blue dot, confirming what my ears were telling me. My wife was on the other side of that wall with another man. Around 8:30 p.m., I heard something that made me want to put my fist through the wall. The voices got quieter, more intimate. The laughter stopped, and then silence. Not empty silence, heavy silence. The kind of silence that tells you exactly what's happening, even though you can't hear anything. I sat there in that dark hotel room, my eyes burning with tears I wouldn't let fall, and I felt something inside me crack. Not break completely, not yet, but definitely fracture. The foundation of my life, the bedrock of my identity as Jessica's husband, started to crumble. How long had this been going on? Who was he? Did she love him? Was I just the convenient home base while she had her real life somewhere else? Around 10 p.m., I heard the shower running in their room. More muffled conversation. More laughter. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up, walked to the door of my room, and opened it slightly. The hallway was empty. I stepped out and stood in front of room 1214. This was it. The moment of truth. I could knock on this door and end the uncertainty. Or I could walk away, get an attorney, and handle this without confrontation. But I needed to see. I needed to know. I needed to look into Jessica's eyes when she was caught. I raised my hand to knock, and that's when the door opened. I didn't have time to move, to hide, to do anything except stand there like a statue as the door to room 1214 swung inward. Jessica stood there in the hotel bathrobe, her hair damp from the shower, holding an ice bucket in her hand. She was looking back into the room, laughing at something someone had said, and then she turned towards the hallway. Our eyes met. I watched every emotion flash across her face in the span of 2 seconds. Confusion, recognition, shock, fear, And then, strangest of all, something that looked almost like relief. Marcus? Her voice was barely a whisper. Hi, Jessica. I was surprised by how calm I sounded. How cold? What? How? Why are you here? The ice bucket slipped from her hands, clattering onto the hallway carpet. That's really your first question. Not I can explain or this isn't what it looks like. A man's voice from inside the room. Jess? Everything okay? Jessica's face went white. Marcus, please let you what? Explain why you're in a hotel room with another man while you told me you were at a work celebration with your team. I stepped closer, and she backed into the doorway. Let you explain why you lied about Detroit. Let you explain why you've been pulling away from me for months? You don't understand? Then make me understand. My voice rose, echoing in the quiet hallway. Make me understand why my wife is spending the night in room 1214, while I'm sitting alone in room 1213, listening to you laugh with some other guy. The man appeared behind Jessica. He was tall, maybe 40, with graying hair and an expensive-looking suit. He put a hand on Jessica's shoulder, and she didn't brush it away. That small gesture hurt more than anything else so far. Maybe we should all go inside and talk about this calmly, the man said. His voice was measured, diplomatic. It made me want to break his perfectly straight nose. Who the hell are you? I demanded. Jessica turned to look at him, and something passed between them. Some kind of silent communication. Then she looked back at me, took a deep breath, and said the words that started the first twist in this nightmare. Marcus, this is David Parkson. And before you jump to conclusions, you need to hear the whole story. Part 9. The first twist Parkson. As in the Parkson account, the big client Jessica had been chasing for months. You're sleeping with a client? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You're actually going to admit that to my face? I'm not sleeping with him. Jessica's voice cracked. Marcus, please just come inside. You're right, you deserve the truth. But we can't do this in the hallway. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around and walk away. But I'd come this far. I needed to hear whatever twisted justification she had prepared. I followed them into room 1214. It was identical to my room, but it told a story mine didn't. 2 wine glasses on the desk, an open laptop showing what looked like spreadsheets, documents scattered across the bed, a half-eaten room service meal on a tray. I stared at her. So you're investigating embezzlement. Not just investigating, David said. We've been gathering evidence for the FBI. That's what tonight is about. We're compiling the final documentation before we hand everything over to federal agents tomorrow morning. My head was spinning. Then why all the secrecy? Why lie about Detroit? Why say you're out celebrating with your team? Jessica's eyes filled with tears. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I know. And I don't expect you to just forgive and forget. But Marcus, I need you to know, I never stopped loving you. Not for 1 second. Every lie I told, I hated myself for it. Every time I saw you looking confused or hurt, it killed me. But I was trying to protect you. By lying to me? By sparing you as long as I could. Because tomorrow morning, when they arrest Ryan, your whole family is going to be in crisis. Your parents are going to be devastated. Your relationship with your brother is going to be destroyed. I wanted to give you a few more months of normal before everything exploded. I understood her logic. I even appreciated the intention, but it didn't erase the pain of the past few months. We need counseling, I said. Like serious marriage counseling. If we're going to get through this, we can't have secrets anymore. Agreed, Jessica said immediately. Whatever you need, whatever it takes. We sat together on that hotel bed, not quite touching but not quite separate, and we started the long process of figuring out how to put our marriage back together. Part 12. The morning after, I didn't sleep that night. Jessica offered to come back to room 12113 with me, but I needed space to think. So she stayed with the case files while I went next door and stared at the ceiling. At 5:30 a.m., I gave up on sleep and took a shower. At 6:15, Jessica texted, David's buying breakfast in the hotel restaurant. Join us? I met them downstairs at 6:30. David was surprisingly warm for a guy I'd nearly punched the night before, ordering me coffee and eggs and making small talk about the Bulls. Jessica barely ate, just pushed fruit around her plate and checked her phone obsessively. At 8:45 a.m., Jessica's phone rang. She looked at the screen and went pale. It's Agent Morrison, the FBI agent in charge. She answered on speaker. "Hello? Ms. Henderson, this is Agent Morrison. I wanted to give you a heads up. We're in position outside Ryan Henderson's residence. We'll execute the arrest warrant at 9 a.m. sharp. Mr. Parkson should be receiving a call from our financial crimes unit any moment to coordinate testimony. And Ms. Henderson, we may need you to come in for additional questions this afternoon." "Of course," Jessica said. "Whatever you need. One more thing. Does your husband know about the situation?" Jessica looked at me. "Yes, he found out last night." "Good. He may want to alert his parents before they see it on the news. Ryan Henderson is going to be a big story. White-collar crime, major theft, the tech angle. Media will be all over it by noon." The call ended. Jessica, David, and I sat in that hotel restaurant, the breakfast rush building around us, and we waited. At 9:07 a.m., Jessica's phone buzzed with a text from Agent Morrison. "Subject in custody. Arrest executed without incident. My little brother was in FBI custody." I excused myself from the table and called my parents. Part 13. The Family Fallout. Phone call to my parents was the hardest conversation of my life. Ryan's been arrested by the FBI for embezzlement and fraud. It's real, it's serious, and it's going to be all over the news. I'm so sorry. My mother's wail of anguish echoed through the phone. My father kept repeating, "That's impossible," over and over. I told them what I knew, left out Jessica's involvement for the moment, and promised to come over soon. By 11 a.m., it was on the local news. By 1 p.m., it had gone national. Chicago tech executive arrested for $3 million fraud scheme. Ryan's face was everywhere. That professional headshot from his LinkedIn profile. While reporters detailed his crimes, Jessica and I drove to my parents' house in Evanston. They were devastated, in complete denial. My mother was convinced it was all a mistake, that Ryan would never do such a thing. My father was already on the phone with defense attorneys, ready to spend their retirement savings on legal fees. And then my mother asked the question I'd been dreading. How did they even catch him? I looked at Jessica. She nodded slightly. Jessica caught him. She was auditing the company where Ryan worked. She found the discrepancies and reported them. The look my mother gave Jessica could have frozen fire. "You turned in my son?" Her voice was ice. "Your own brother-in-law?" "Mrs. Henderson, he stole $3 million, Jessica said gently. "He committed serious crimes." "I didn't have a choice." "You had a choice!" My mother stood up, shaking. "You could have come to us. You could have given him a chance to return the money. Instead, you went to the FBI like he was some stranger?" "Mom," I started. "And you?" She turned on me. "Did you know about this?" "Not until last night." "But you're taking her side now?" "Your brother is sitting in a jail cell, and you're defending the woman who put him there?" It got ugly after that. My mother screaming that Jessica had destroyed our family. My father quietly asking us to leave. The look of betrayal in their eyes when we walked out the door. In the car, Jessica broke down sobbing. "I've lost your family. They're never going to forgive me." I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that my parents would come around once they understood. But I couldn't lie to her anymore. "Maybe not," I said. "But you did the right thing." Part 14. The final twist. The preliminary hearing was set for 3 weeks later. Jessica and I were in counseling, slowly rebuilding trust. My parents weren't speaking to us. Ryan's attorney was claiming entrapment and illegal surveillance, trying to get the evidence thrown out. And then, 2 days before the hearing, Jessica got a call from Agent Morrison. "We need you to come to the field office immediately. There's been a development." We drove downtown in silence, both of us terrified of what development might mean. Had they found a way to drag Jessica into criminal charges? Had Ryan flipped on someone else? Agent Morrison met us in a conference room with 2 other agents and an attorney from the DOJ. "We've been analyzing Ryan Henderson's financial records more deeply," Morrison began. "Specifically, we've been trying to track where all $3 million went. We found the Porsche, the condo, some luxury purchases, but that only accounts for about $1 million. We couldn't find the other $2 million. Did he hide it offshore?" I asked. "No." Morrison slid a folder across the table. "He invested it in a very specific company. We need to ask you both some questions about Henderson Tech Solutions." My blood ran cold. Henderson Tech Solutions was the startup I'd founded 2 years ago. A small software consulting company. Ryan had been one of my initial investors, putting in $100,000 for a 20% stake. Ryan invested in my company with his own money, I said slowly. He told me he'd been saving for years. Mr. Henderson, your company received 3 separate capital investments from your brother over the past 18 months. The amounts were $100,000, $750,000, and $1.2 million. Do you remember these investments? I nodded. Yes, the first was the initial stake. The other 2 were when we expanded. Ryan said he believed in the company and wanted to invest more. Jessica grabbed my hand under the table. Marcus, he was laundering the money through your business. Agent Morrison nodded. That's our assessment. He stole money from Parks and Financial and invested it in your company to make it look legitimate. Then he planned to eventually extract it as returns on investment. But I didn't know! I felt panic rising in my chest. I had no idea that money was stolen. I thought, we believe you, Morrison said. All the evidence suggests you were an unwitting participant. However, this complicates things significantly. The money Ryan invested in your company is proceeds from criminal activity, which means the government is going to seize it. The DOJ attorney finished. Henderson Tech Solutions received approximately $2 million in stolen funds. Those funds are subject to criminal asset forfeiture. My company, my business, the thing I'd built from nothing. Ryan had turned it into a vehicle for money laundering, and now it was all going to come crashing down. How do I fix this? My voice cracked. You cooperate fully with our investigation, Morrison said. You provide all financial records, all communications with your brother regarding the investments, everything. You'll likely need to restructure the company, potentially return some of Ryan's equity stake, and work with our forensic accountants to separate legitimate business from criminal proceeds. Can the company survive this? They exchanged glances. Maybe, if you're very lucky and very cooperative. Epilogue. 6 months later, Ryan pleaded guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. 7 years in federal prison, my parents attended every day of his sentencing hearing and didn't speak to Jessica or me once. Henderson Tech Solutions survived. Barely. I had to take on new investors to replace the seized funds, give up majority control of my own company, and spend months rebuilding credibility with clients. But it survived. Jessica and I are still in counseling. Some days are better than others. The lies have stopped, but the trust is still rebuilding, one honest conversation at a time. I sold the AirTag. Didn't need it anymore. Didn't want the reminder. My parents sent a card on my birthday, but didn't call. My mother wrote inside, "We miss you, but we can't forgive what was done to Ryan." I don't know if we'll ever have a relationship again. Sometimes I drive past the Grandview Plaza Hotel and think about that night, how I stood in the hallway ready to confront my wife's affair, and instead discovered my brother's crimes. How the worst night of my life twisted and turned until I didn't know which way was up. Jessica asked me the other day if I regretted tracking her, if I wished I'd never found out about any of it. No, I told her honestly. If I hadn't shown up that night, you wouldn't have told me before the arrest. I would have been blindsided even worse. And yeah, maybe ignorance would have been easier, but I'd rather live in the truth, even if it's painful. She kissed me then, really kissed me, for the first time in months. And I felt something I hadn't felt since that November night. Hope. Our marriage isn't what it was. My family isn't what it was. My business isn't what it was. But we're building something new from the wreckage. Something honest. Something real. And I guess that's all you can do when your entire world shifts on its axis. You find solid ground wherever you can, and you start building again. Sometimes the betrayal you imagine isn't the one you find. Sometimes the truth is so much more complicated than a simple affair. And sometimes, standing outside room 1214 at the Grandview Plaza Hotel, ready to confront your wife, you discover that everything you thought you knew about your life was wrong. My name is Marcus Henderson. This was my story, and I'm still deciding if the truth set me free or just gave me a different kind of prison.